the sales apprenticeship side has exposed me to mentors that have been there and have walked in those shoes. The apprenticeship has been heavily beneficial to me. My favourite thing has definitely got to be getting exposure to some amazing sites. Automotive companies, food and beverage companies. You get to walk around some amazing shop floors, understand how things are made.
Welcome to the ISP NextGen podcast, where we speak to salespeople about their journeys to help you demystify the profession. Today, we are joined by Lucas Laurie, Business Development Manager at Siemens. And I hope I pronounced your surname correctly there, Lucas.
Yeah, it's Laurie. Yeah, that's that's fine.
Perfect. Did you want to take a minute to introduce yourself and share a little bit more with the audience?
Yeah, for sure. So hello to everybody who's watching, like Jordan said, morning, afternoon, whichever time. My name's Lucas Laurie, and I'm a Business Development Manager for Siemens Digital Industries, which is predominantly the Siemens business that is selling into manufacturing sectors. It's industrial automation rather than perhaps the ovens and the mobile phones that might have come to mind straight away. So I've recently finished an apprenticeship scheme. I'm right at the end of the sales apprenticeship scheme with the business that's run over the last 3 years, and I'll transition into my role looking after machine builders as a full-time role in the next, quite literally next few weeks. So that's me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Exciting times by the sounds of things. Can you explain to me your job as if you were explaining it to a 5-year-old?
Sure, I can try. The way I describe my job is I go in, I understand customers, and I help solve their problems, whether that be a technical problem they've got, or a product, or simply a question on how they can build more, how they can sell more. But fundamentally, I'm going in to understand their challenges and solve their problems. Now,
what was it that initially piqued your interest in pursuing a career in sales?
It's a long one to answer and a little bit of an awkward one. So always, from quite a young age, I always wanted to be a professional golfer. It was always what I wanted to do. I spent a lot of time practicing, improving my game, trying to do everything I could, whether that was gym, nutrition. But when we had lockdown when I was in sixth form, kind of realised that if you're not in the right kind of percent of ability in your age group for the UK, you're not really going to make a career that you want to out of the game. So it was back to the drawing boards for me. And because we were in lockdown, a lot of people were on furlough, I started to think about boiling things back. And, people are, on furlough, they've got disposable income. A lot of them are still, having disposable income and trading. What can I do to, sort of boost myself along? So I started a car balloting business of my own, went out. Cars have always been an interest of mine anyway. So sort of built up my supplies, understood a little bit about fundamentally what I needed to do to take it to market, and started to build a little bit of a business. Started off by word of mouth, and that started to scale over 6-12 months. Now, when I sort of took a step back from that, you realize that what you're doing is selling a service to a customer, and dependent on how good that service was, the phone might ring again, or the phone might not ring again. And, when I started to understand that, I thought fundamentally what I'm doing is selling myself and my service to these customers. And that's what piqued my interest in sales, really.
Nice. I absolutely love that. I used to have sort of seasonal businesses with my younger brother. So summer it was car washing, winter clearing snow from people's drives, autumn leaves, that sort of thing. And then spring it was general gardening and planting bulbs, etc. So very, it was a lot of fun. And as you said, what it boils down to is sales. So that's fantastic. One more question from me. What's your handicap?
Well, at the moment it's 2.
Wow.
I used to play very, very frequently. Now a little bit more of a weekend warrior, but I can still get it round. Hopefully enough to take the money on the corporate golf days anyway.
Love that. Yeah. And business can be done on the golf course. So,
Can be.
2 birds with 1 stone. Brilliant. I wanted to touch or go into a bit more detail around the apprenticeship, because I think it's something that is perhaps undervalued, underleveraged by people, by organisations. What impacts do you feel it's had on your career development and performance once you were in seat, so to speak?
I would say the impact has been substantial. So it's about building up an understanding of business-to-business sales fundamentally from day one, as opposed to, Lucas, here's a set of car keys, here's a catalogue and go and sell. It's two opposite ends. Now, what the sales apprenticeship side has exposed me to are mentors that have been there and have walked in those shoes. So they've delivered content to us that's been amazing. Yeah, it's all about it's very much a culture of understanding the customer's world, learning the questioning, sales strategy, psychology. It's been brilliant. But having access to those people as well who have done it, you can kind of go a little bit off piece with regards to the content they're giving you in asking for simple advice. So I'm in quite regular contact with them. So you might come across something that's a bit challenging at the time and say, look, use them as a bit of a sounding board. Here's what I'm thinking. Am I on the right tracks? What would you do based on your experience? So they've been incredibly useful for sort of navigating in a lot of those situations. Now, another thing that they've been very good at is sort of emphasizing questioning. And it's questions. Learn how to question in a powerful way is always something they've emphasized. And I think even in a position where you've got less knowledge, let's say, about what similar customers are doing, or less knowledge about typical engineering applications in this context and technology, having the right questioning, you're going to solve 50% of the puzzle by understanding what the customer really wants to achieve. So I think having that culture through the apprenticeship has been, heavily beneficial to me.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Now, on that mentor piece, I'm sure there's been countless fantastic pieces of advice that have been given to you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any standouts?
Yes. And I suppose it's a point that I mentioned briefly a second ago, just about learning. And, they just encourage you to be a lifelong learner. So I think maybe growth mindset is an overused term, but it's the idea of just constantly wanting to understand why, bit of a thirst for knowledge, go and ask the right questions until you get the answers. Be a lifelong learner is something that's been super useful to me, because it's very easy to try and understand and ask a powerful question to a customer. They might give you a response that actually you don't have a full understanding of what their pain point is. So again, having the confidence to ask why again. So it's about being a constant lifelong learner. Now, where else that's beneficial is when you're going into these accounts and working with these customers, it constantly gives you a reason to visit them again, which helps with the momentum. And it's going to help you in the challenging times, like you mentioned. Go and take a load of actions, go and commit to finding a load of intel that's going to help them, and constantly have a reason to go back and speak with them. So it sort of, builds the relationship with them. Now, one of the best bits of feedback and learning that I picked up on was a statement that you can constantly use with customers. So when you're trying to be that salesperson that navigates them through a process, using the terms, does it make sense for us to proceed with X? So often a customer might not know where they want to go. So you can say, based on our experience with other similar customers, we tend to do X. Does it make sense for us to do Y? So they've encouraged me to sort of think in that way and be a guiding body with a customer, which has been a brilliant bit of advice from them. So you're almost taking a leadership position with customers, which has been, really, really beneficial.
Yeah. To your point about growth mindset sort of being a term that's thrown around quite loosely at times, mm-hmm. You've summarized it really, really nicely there. It brings to mind the old adage of curiosity killed the cat, but knowledge brought it back. Lucas, what is your favorite thing about selling technology to manufacturing companies?
I'd say my favorite thing has definitely got to be getting exposure to some amazing sites, whether it's automotive companies, food and beverage companies, machine builders. You get to walk around some amazing shop floors, understand how things are made, and really embrace the culture of your customers' businesses.
What are some of the challenges that you have faced since joining World of Sales?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a broad question. I think one of the first things that I faced as a challenge, I'd say, was a little bit of confidence, to be honest, because coming out of almost, a school environment or a 100% learning environment like sixth form, all of a sudden you find yourself responsible for speaking with customers, whether that's company directors, whoever it might be, and they look to you as the source of intel, the profession, the person representing Siemens. And without an engineering background or a full understanding of the products, confidence was a bit of a barrier that I had. So it was, you don't feel like you're giving the best representation of yourself or the brand if you don't feel like you're giving a message that is perceived as valuable to them. So confidence was something that I came across as a bit of a barrier, certainly in the early days.
Yeah. And how did you go about overcoming that?
Well, I think something that was encouraged to me quite early on is that we're not there to talk about, for example, products and services, as that might have been the case, some 10, 20 years ago. Customers have got a lot of information readily available to them. And instead, the role of a salesperson is to navigate them through the process. And it's not to say that you don't need to know the products, because that's not entirely true. You do need to know what you're talking about. But I think what I quickly learned to do is understand fundamentally, to listen to the customers, but more importantly, learn where the point of contacts were in the business that could support me. So I might understand some of the core products at a fairly high level and maybe one level below that, so I can have a basic conversation, but then understand where to navigate it to for, the further conversations that might be necessary down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a common sort of misconception, one that I have certainly fallen victim to in terms of multi-threading. I always felt like I needed to hold all the threads and have all these connections, when really it's about leveraging those internal resources and ensuring that they've got relationships within your target accounts, and bringing them in, leaning on them when you can.
Mm-hmm.
And then, brilliant. Now, of course, as we've spoken about, sales is a frontline business. It's the frontline for any business, should I say. Comes with some pros and cons. Pros, we get instant feedback from the market. Perhaps a con would be whenever the market does shift or buyer behaviours change, we often most harshly feel the brunt of those shifts. Now, how do you go about staying adaptable and consistently striving for success, or consistently striving to improve day by day in those periods of drastic change?
It's a good question, and it's a $1 million answer, isn't it? I think if I was to try and summarize it, I'd say you can't overlook the power of just learning. So learn. In this instance, what outside of the Siemens walls is driving that behavior? So why is the market tough? Is it political? Is it economic? What is it fundamentally that's driving that behavior? Yeah. Is it increases in energy costs, skills gaps commonly spoken about, different funding that's available, different taxes, then how do you craft your message around those points to the right people? Because if you can get 50% of the way through that, it's good. But then if you're giving a message about the economy, for example, to someone who is a user of a product, that message isn't going to resonate with them. So I think you've got to constantly learn what's going on and fundamentally understand what creates the change in the behavior, but then learn to craft the message to suit that person or those people.
Yeah.
And then I think as well, you've almost got to earn the right to have the conversations with people. So let's say you've got a new account or an account that you're working with, you've got to develop that relationship and show your credibility in order for them to share more of the ongoing business and projects that they're working on. It's a bit of a give and take. They're not just going to openly share everything with you if you've not given something to them, or you've not proved something. So it's really about understanding the account and the customer fully to get involved in everything that is going on in their business. So that's probably what I'd say to kind of stay agile.
Yeah, I love that. It's taking that holistic view, right? And then keeping on your toes, remaining adaptable, testing, optimizing as you move forward. So great answer there. It's clear that constant development, constant learning, continuous learning is something that you're really passionate about. Have you picked up any best practices? And they're often quite personal, but it may be personal for someone else as well, or useful for someone listening.
I would definitely say, and this probably can be applied to a wide resource of sales roles. One of the first books I read about this sort of stuff was from Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's habit 5. He talks about seek first to understand, then to be understood, which kind of links to a phrase in simple terms, which is you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use it in proportion. So really, really listen, learn to understand. Learn to listen to understand rather than listen to respond.
Yeah.
Is a huge bit of advice and something that I definitely recommend, because like I said, if you can diagnose a problem accurately, that's 50% of solving it. And then I'd also encourage people to think about when they've got decisions or in situations, think with a mindset of how can I create an outcome where everybody wins. So rather than just, we can solve a problem and solve it for the sake of solving it, but instead, how do we solve it where everybody wins? So whether someone gets knowledge, whether someone gets a sale done, whether your customer gets success, kind of thinking the respect that, okay, I'm going into this to create a win for everybody, rather than a win just for us, for example, or solving something just for a customer. It should be about everyone winning.
Yeah.
And I think within that as well, to push that, you can use more almost like customer-centric language. So for a lot of your customers, they're using your product or service to, sell their product or service. So rather than going into a customer and talking about your agenda, lead with language like, how can we help you sell more? And again, that creates that win-win for everybody. So you're helping them actually try and grow as a business, and you're helping them sell more rather than it being more transactional.
Yeah.
And I think that then helps the relationship take care of itself, where it starts to naturally move to more of a partnership than just a sort of product or service kind of focused relationship. So I'd say having a bit of a thinking in those types of ways is definitely some advice I'd encourage.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, as you touched on earlier, the role is shifting away from what people typically think a sales role is me trying to get the better of you, me versus you. I'm trying to line my pocket, to one that is, I'm here to guide you. How can we make this relationship mutually beneficial? Right? I'm not going to beat around the bush. Of course, I am compensated based on how much I sell. So, that's something that is there. You're aware of it, so am I. But in this moment, my primary objective is to help you. So, yeah, really nicely put. And, 2 ears, 1 mouth is great. There was, I think it was Theodore Roosevelt that said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I thought it's just brilliant. Brilliant. Cool. Last question from me, Lucas.
Sure.
What advice would you give to anyone that is considering a career in sales?
It's a very good question. And if you're really considering it, I would thoroughly encourage you to go for it, because I think it's a role that no one goes into and is a natural kind of born salesperson. I think everybody that goes into a sales role has a fundamental learning curve. I think if you feel like you are the type of person that is a good listener and a good problem solver, fundamentally, you'll be pretty good. I think as you get further into a sales role, it's more about, networking different groups of people and doing different types of projects. Fundamentally, what it boils down to is, can you understand and diagnose a problem, and can you help create success for a customer? And if you can do those things, or at least think you can learn how to, I'd strongly encourage it. One bit of advice I'd give is it's strongly based on accountability. So there's a lot of trust in this. I spoke about, going in and getting actions. Make sure that you do them. People trust, they put their trust in you, whether that might be a project or their customer. If you say you're going to do something, make sure you get it done. So I'd say if you are the type of person that, you feel like you are accountable for what you do, you trust yourself, you're deadline driven, and you feel like you can make an impact in someone's business, by all means go and learn those skills and pick up on that. But I think that's probably the advice I'd give.
Yeah, very nicely put. Lucas, thank you very much for joining me, and to everyone listening, until next time.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Next time on the ISP NextGen podcast National Apprenticeship Week specials.
I started selling fish cakes at farmers markets around Hampshire.
You completed the level 4 sales executive apprenticeship.
For the understanding of the sales cycle, how that works, the interaction that you should have with the customer, different ways of selling to different types of customers.